Cover 3 tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 tailgate. Fifth Beetle checking in as well, as we are just sitting here, locked, loaded, rivalry weekend. And look, there are two things that are happening at the same time, because whether you are one of the many joining us live, and we really appreciate everybody doing that, or maybe you're listening to this on Sunday morning, the coaching carousel news is out of control. So we've got to both recap an epic, thrilling, impactful rivalry weekend while also acknowledging Texas A&M, Michigan State. Dominoes that could come from that. Like, that is going to come. So a little bit later, we will be getting into some of the coaching news. Jonathan Smith, by the way, to Michigan State official. Other stories as we were sitting here, 11:37 p.m. Eastern time, reports indicating that Kentucky's Mark Stoops, who took down Louisville, more on that in a little bit, might be headed towards Texas A&M, the many different pieces of that. But we begin simply, and also, 4th and a mile. Great call from Brad Nessler. We'll get to that next. But let's start with Michigan 30, Ohio State 24. And before we do the Ryan Day part of this, because we are on the 1-year anniversary, not to the day, but at least to the week, of Tom Fornelli and I saying, if Ryan Day loses again to Michigan, that he's on the hot seat. So, let's talk about
being sane, being like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, because we were, again, we're not going to pull back the clip from a year ago, but Tom and I couched it with, we don't agree with this being the case, just the way we see it. So let's start with the Michigan side. Tom, you were on top of this for CBSSports.com. What impressed you the most about Michigan in this win?
That they won. I don't know. I was trying to figure out who the player of the game was for Michigan in this one, and I really couldn't come up with one. I know Blake Corum had the 2 touchdowns. He set the single season rushing touchdown record for Michigan school history, and he had, a couple runs. Like on that final drive where Michigan kind of salted the game away, Blake had a couple big runs to keep the drive going. He also had the diving over the line of scrimmage on the 4th down to keep the drive going. But I felt like it was mostly a team win, honestly. I don't think anybody was spectacular. I think that Will Johnson's interception really in the first quarter, even though there was a lot of game left, to play at that point, was probably the most pivotal play of the game. Because if you look at the box score overall, Ohio State was better on offense than Michigan was today. They had more success moving the ball consistently than Michigan did throughout the entire game. And obviously more than anybody has had on Michigan all season long. And I just think that Kyle McCord was just really, really bad early in the game. He had the interception that led to the first and goal for Michigan that led to the first touchdown. But even aside from that interception, it was a great play by Johnson, but it was also a bad throw in that it was behind Harrison and it allowed Johnson to get to it. And he was behind a lot of targets. He was throwing at people's feet. He just looked awful. And then he finally kind of found a rhythm and a groove. And he played well from that point on. And, he finished 18-30 for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But, of course, the second interception was kind of a desperation thing at the end of the game. So it just felt like Ohio State took too long to settle in. And Michigan offensively, they finished with 338 yards. They averaged 5.6 yards per play. They were solid, but they couldn't really run the ball until late. And even then, they weren't getting the explosive plays that they've kind of had all season long. Were not there. And then I think that's honestly the key to this game. The explosive plays, by and large, were taken away by both teams. There were some big plays to Marvin Harrison, but for the most part, it was mostly having to go 12 plays, 75 yards. And they did a very good job of doing it enough times to get points on the board. But it was just, to me, it was a very evenly played football game. I don't think anybody was spectacular. I don't think anybody was bad. I just think at the end, Ohio State turned the ball over twice. One of them was a backbreaker, but just a terrible spot for it. And Michigan didn't turn the ball over. So it really just came down to Michigan made a couple fewer mistakes, and they ended up winning because of it.
If I had to pick a player of the game, I would go Colston Loveland. Honestly, 5 targets, all 5 were caught. I think 3 of the 5 were difficult catches. And guys, honestly, all 5 went for first downs or touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I think, by far the most impactful player that Michigan had. And it reminded me a little bit. Do you guys remember into the first quarter, kind of midway through the second quarter, how Maryland was able to throw the ball inside the numbers against Ohio State?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it that night. It was yeah, Ohio State ended up dominating them, but they did kind of give up some passes over the middle and between the hash marks, and that's where Michigan found ways to attack them, with the pass game to the extent they attacked him. But I think Tom nailed it, man. This was a physical football game. Both teams, I thought, played really good defense. When they did move the ball and score, for the most part, it was stuff that was really kind of circus catches or really good catches, or maybe not even a catch at all, depending. I thought that they were both kind of fairly impressive, honestly. Day is just really limited, I think, with what he can do with McCord. And that says a lot about what they have at quarterback. And I think he's clearly injured too. He didn't look very athletic running around out there. But when you have those weapons at receiver and you have Ryan Day as a play caller and you only get what you got, I think it says a lot about the quarterback. We've asked this all year, do they have one? They don't.
I also think I do think Michigan had a better coaching performance, at least as far as aggression is concerned, because Michigan went for it on fourth down 3 times. They converted all 3 times. Ohio State never went for it on 4th down, and I feel like there were a couple times in the game where maybe they should have. It wasn't a completely indefensible position to either kick the field goal or punt, but especially early when the defenses were both kind of just completely in control of the game. But I don't know. I think if I'm on the road and I'm trying to end a losing streak to this team, and I'm trying to, because when you look at what Ohio State did this year, and I remember too, another thing I said about this team on the show last year before we even got into the Ryan Day stuff was I said they were soft on offense. And I wasn't the only person who felt that way about Ohio State last year. And I think we saw a very concerted effort to get away from that perception this year with the way that this team played, because they were not soft on offense this year. But it felt kind of soft to not go for it on 4th down. It felt kind of just take this game, grab this game by the neck, just strangle them, beat them. If you're going to do it, you're not going to play field position and beat this Michigan team. They're too good. They're too well-rounded for you to win that way, especially on the road in this environment. So that was one aspect of the game where I felt like Michigan had a clear advantage on the Buckeyes. But maybe that goes to what you're talking about, Bud. Maybe that's just Ryan Day does not have the confidence in his QB to be I can go for 4th down here.
Forget Ryan Day. I mean, did Ohio State lack some juice in this game? Am I overanalyzing? This is the big game that gives us all the different camera angles, a lot of sideline shots, a lot of good reaction shots. We're following you into the locker room, coming out of the locker room, halftime. It just seemed like Ohio State was there just taking care of business. It was a little bit robotic. And again, I am overanalyzing one of the biggest games of the entire season. But when you're talking about a game that's going to be decided at the margins, you've got a coach that's not showing aggression. You've got a quarterback who's limited. You've got just not a lot of buzz, not a lot of pop, not a lot of juice. This was an unfair reaction on that first interception by Will Johnson, because you're right, the throw was behind him, but it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, did he not think that throw was good enough? Did he think that was just an off throw and Will Johnson made a play that Marvin Harrison Jr. could have made? And I'm not going to put, he had a terrific game, but it just didn't seem like there was a lot of, even as they were rallying, the sidelines weren't buzzing in the way that you might expect. And that is an unfair reaction, but I just didn't I never got the sense that Ohio State, even deep into this game when they mathematically had a chance to win, I did not think they were going to win. And it's because they did not seem to be playing with confidence. They did not seem to be playing with the kind of inspiration that sometimes is visible when you go into a place like the Big House and come out with a victory.
I don't think that's fair to Marvin Harrison, what you said. I think that
that's
interception was, I mean, I don't know what he's supposed to do. The ball was behind him as he was moving in a different direction. He reached back to get the ball, and when he reached back to try to pull in the ball, Will Johnson was running through his arm to get the
credit
ball.
to Will Johnson.
Yeah, it's not like Marvin could just completely stop and screen him off the ball. He couldn't do anything about it. If it was a good throw, at worst, it's just an incomplete pass that Will Johnson, bats down. So
sure, I'll take that. That's my misread.
I will say Ohio State was sufficiently juiced. I think Michigan was more juiced, but I think you kind of get that playing at home, especially because they had the bigger moments went their way. Whereas Ohio State, it felt like because after that interception, when Michigan scored the touchdown to go ahead 7-0, Michigan never trailed again. Like Ohio State tied it up at 17, but Michigan was never behind. And it just kind of felt like it wasn't that they were lacking the energy. It's just they were kind of chasing the game from that point on. And you kind of got that sense. Whereas Michigan felt a little more relaxed because it was never truly in danger. Ohio State just kind of had that, oh, crap, we can't afford to mess up again. We've got to be perfect now kind of energy about them.
I also think like you have to know your ball club, right? And Michigan seems to be playing on this like we're going to be just juiced to high heaven, right? And like Harbaugh suspended and like and you're playing off your home crowd. You're bouncing around a lot. Like, I mean, Ryan Day is what 11-1. He has to know his team and say like, hey, what's the right motivational lever to pull here, right? Like you don't want your team to be overjuiced and then start playing Michigan's game. Like I mean, if they weren't, I mean, I totally get what Chip's point is. I just don't know if they had to be like like just visibly emotionally like that. Like I thought Michigan was plenty physical, right? Like that many times, or sorry, I thought Ohio State was plenty physical. Like many times Michigan would smash the ball into the line, and Ohio State's there. I mean, they're stunning those blockers, right? Like,
oh, look,
having to bounce the ball to the outside.
Williams, like, dude, I thought that not Michigan, Ohio State's defense did a great job at the point of attack against Michigan. Full credit. I thought they played well enough to win the game for sure.
You have some very limited passing games there overall, which kind of on both sides. But I thought McCarthy was a little bit better than McCord was. The numbers won't show it, but I mean, hell, you could tell me I'm wrong on that. After all, like the one play into the end zone was a little. If it was called a pick on the field, they'd probably leave it a pick, right?
I thought he pretty clearly crossed the goal line before the ball came loose. I think that was some hopeful stuff from Ohio State, honestly.
Yeah, the broadcast made a big deal out of this, and I was like, okay, maybe like as I'm watching it, their angle's better or something than the one I'm seeing on the screen. But it looks like he hawks his arm, right? Clearly makes contact, but the ball looked like it was fairly secure, right? Even like yes, his arm's hit, but the ball looks okay until after he crosses. Yeah,
there was no definitive angle, but I feel like triangulating it or whatever the hell word you would have to use from the different angles that they did have. Based on what I saw, it seemed pretty clear to me that he had crossed the plane before he lost control of the football. So you're right. Had they called it an interception, I don't know if they could have overturned it. And I think that's where the iffiness comes in, but I do think they got it right. Also, I do think that might have been the best throw I've ever seen J.J. McCarthy make.
He looks good. I mean, how about his mobility? Like we saw him limping around those last couple weeks. He hasn't thrown what was Reese Davis on ESPN's College Game Day kind of cooked him without meaning to.
He said it was the first touchdoation he'd thrown since the Michigan State game because
it was like leading into it. It was like he hasn't thrown a touchdown in a month.
Yeah,
coming up on new, which again, factually correct statements that when presented, you're like, whoa.
Don't provide the entire context of Michigan typically handing the ball off inside the 20.
30 run plays in a row against their toughest opponent. But sure, yeah, like we're coming back. We got a long shot. But also. They were so into attacking the middle of the field that when our boy left spitting up blood, they just went right to Barner. the Indiana transfer on like the very next play, because we are still going to exploit the middle of the field, because that's where we feel like we've got a matchup against Chambers, against Eichenberg, when we get our big bodies against your linebackers. That was, good job, good execution. I thought Sharon Moore did a good job. It was we're solid, sort of all the way around for the Wolverines.
Going back to Tuesday's big game breakdown, we said like, hey, where could you miss Harbaugh? Right? It's probably not in the play calling and all that stuff. He's there throughout the week. It's not in the rah-rah speech or whatever. It's do you have the stones to make what you know is the right call? We use the blackjack example, right? If you're playing by the card, you know it's mathematically the right call. It said you need to split. Oh, shoot, split again. And now it's calling for you to make 3 or 4 doubles, right? And that's going to be basically your stack. Now, you know it's the right time to go. Can you do it? Like, can you pull that trigger? And he did. Like, Sharon Moore deserves credit because an interim type or just a substitute teacher type coach, he could have puckered. And like he damn sure made the right decision, and he got the outcome he wanted, obviously. But like the decision was the correct one.
I can't remember. Like, chat, maybe you remember. Was Sharon the head coach for the UNLV game?
That was the third game. He only had one of the 3 that he was the acting head coach. I don't remember which one.
I can't remember, because if he was, like, you could argue that Sharon was Michigan's head coach for its 3 biggest games of the year.
So UNLV fumbled the bag. Have we gotten the computer rankings in? Beep, beep, boop, boop, pop, pop. Y'all know that's how the Mountain West is about to be decided, right?
Chat saying it was Bowling Green that Sharon was in charge of. So, okay, 3 of their 4 biggest wins.
So the team that beat Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Right? So is that like a transitive, upset scare against Georgia?
Georgia Tech hung with Georgia. We'll talk about that later.
I'll talk about that later too. All right, so let's get to the Ryan Day side of this. Maurice Claret. Terrell
within
Pryor.
like 2 hours. No, Maurice Claret was tweeted like before, like, all right, we believe in you, Ryan Day. Let's go out there and do it. 2 hours later, Maurice is like, he got to go.
Yeah. Maurice Claret, Terrell Pryor, Bud.
Really?
Names, capital N names from the Ohio State family are coming out. And while Urban Meyer on the Fox desk, he did everything but put him on the hot seat, because he said, is there any, like job security, like no job security issues at all, but is there pressure? Absolutely. He lives in Columbus. His family lives in Columbus, and you're the Ohio State football coach, and yada, yada, yada. Like, laid out all these reasons why Ryan Day's life after losing to Michigan for a 3rd straight year is just not going to be welcome. And it is bananas, because the man has 7 losses and 55 wins. But the problem is that he is 1-6 against AP top 5 opponents.
Yeah, like what his last 4 losses have been to Michigan and Georgia. Like, I mean, he sucks. He can't beat Michigan and Georgia.
1-6 against AP top 5 opponents. Again, like the 7 losses, 55 wins.
I mean, look, I thought it was a bit last year when Tom suggested it, but Tom lives in Big Ten country, so like maybe this is the attitude of more Ohio State fans than I realize.
This is,
however,
go ahead.
Gene Smith's still the AD, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, he's outgoing though.
He's going out. Yeah.
Is the new AD an adult?
No, they haven't decided it. That
it's
is
a baby.
Okay, so we're gonna get an interim AD. I will ask you guys this question, because, like, look, clearly this is a thing among fans, and maybe it's a thing among big enough boosters, but I kind of doubt it. But I mean, heck, like Ohio State's kind of an automatic. Like, you're not born on third base, but like you are sort of born with 8 wins.
They're never bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, exactly. Although Fickle was bad that one year, but it was kind of a weird situation. Like, it wasn't really his fault. Who in their right mind is going to take this job? Who you would actually want to take this job? If you fire a guy because his record against top 5 teams is not very good. Like, I get it. If you were Ohio State, you're like, man, you got a pretty bad record against top 25 teams, but top 5.
This is the thing that I think, and I've kind of dealt with this as long as I have followed this sport, because there is a perception outside of like Big Ten country, because the Big Ten hasn't won a national title in a lot, like Ohio State won in 2014, but really for the most part, like this is a sport that has been dominated by the Southeast for a very long time. Ohio State the fan base is every bit as delusional as Texas A&M. The only difference is they've actually have success. Michigan's fan base is crazy too. They are both insane. They both have unrealistically high expectations. The only difference between them is how they react to failure. Ohio State just kind of, grabs its pitchforks and goes to burn stuff down. Michigan pretends they no longer care and they're above it when the team is bad. But it really, inside, it just burns them really bad. Because then as soon as they're good again, it's like, all right, we're the best in the world. We do things the right way. We're the, whatever. It's just, so they are both insane. Penn State fans are insane. Michigan State fans, to a certain degree, are insane. Their boosters are just as insane as a lot of other, like the Big Ten doesn't get the same kind of crazy, stupid reputation that a lot of SEC programs do, but it exists. And it really exists in Columbus, where they are nuts. And I say that with affection.
Yeah,
they are out of their
it.
GD minds when it comes to
we all know
this
what they look
football
like,
program.
too, right? Okay.
Yeah, and nothing gets them angry. Like, and this goes back to what I was saying. We were talking about this a year ago. The goal is to win the Big Ten. They want to win national titles. That's all great. But you cannot if you lose that, if you're not winning the Big Ten or winning national titles, that's fine as long as you are beating Michigan. And it is the same on Michigan's side. It's fine as long as you are beating Ohio State. When you're not, when you've lost 3 straight, they hate you. And that's the thing. Like, I don't think Ohio State is going to fire Ryan Day. I think Ohio State would be out of its damn mind to fire Ryan Day because, okay, go find the coach who can beat Georgia regularly. I'd love to meet him. But, like, I don't know if Ryan Day wants to put up with this crap anymore. Like, it is, like what Urban was saying, it is an incredible amount of pressure that is put on your shoulders in that job when you're not beating Michigan, when you're not getting done what the fans want you to get done. He's got to live there, man. His kids go to school there. This is like their life. I don't know if he's going to stick around. I don't.
He named that room in his pint house his record against Michigan. Urban Meyer at Urban Meyer's. Yeah. Urban Meyer in his pint house has a room that is named for his undefeated record against Michigan.
Is the pint house the bar with the gravity bar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Where you go to the bar nest for 2 fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No, like it is so absurd to approach this because that is the answer. The answer is Ryan Day is under immense pressure, even though his win percentage and his record against everybody in the Big Ten that is not named Michigan. I guess, yeah, he hasn't lost to Penn State either. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Isn't he undefeated against every Big Ten opponent not named Michigan? Because it's Oregon.
Yeah, his 3 losses have all been to Michigan.
We can sit here and count.
Has to be.
Yeah, we can sit here and count Ryan Day's losses, and we're still talking about. I mean,
Michigan.
Wild. Yeah, 3 losses to Michigan. You've got the Oregon regular season loss. You've got the Georgia loss, and you've got the Clemson semifinal loss in the 2019 season, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's nuts.
It's nuts.
This game is that important to these people.
Like, it absolutely is important. And with how the Big Ten was this year and how some of the Big Ten was last year, I get it. Like, if you want to say, hey, I want to judge Ryan Day on like a 2 or 3 game season, that's not unreasonable, right? Because there are a certain level of athlete you kind of have to play with Ohio State. And that has to be paired with at least passable quarterback play, which, this year especially, some of the opponents didn't really have. But man, like, we're talking about like 2 or 3 coin flip games against top 5 teams. Like, this guy was a field goal away from a national title last
Georgia,
year.
Yep.
And it wasn't like fluky.
Yeah, no,
this will be an important AD hire for Ohio State.
Yeah.
We'll find out who runs that place.
And like as we're about to hit the break and get into 4th and a mile and so much more that we have to get into from this week on the field and in the coaching carousel, my prediction is that Ryan Day is not going to get fired, but Ryan Day, his stock price is high enough that he could survey the landscape and find a position with less immediate pressure and urgency than what he would face in Columbus.
And you want a great job where you won't feel any pressure? Pretty sure the Los Angeles Chargers are going to be hiring this offseason. You want to just go call football plays, be rich, and live in a great house, not have anybody care what you do? Bam, there you go.
Yeah, that's the other thing is, we got a lot of time. NFL coaching cycle gives us a second wind here in the back half of the season. Coming up on the other side, yes, we get into the Alabama Crimson Tide getting in and out of Jordan-Hare Stadium with a win and so much more from Rivalry Week. Next.
The Scudetto, where the soul of Italy meets the pinnacle of calcio. Catch Serie A on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, just awesome audience in the Cover 3 tailgate watching live. All we ask from you, if you've not subscribed already, if you're just finding us, smash that subscribe, because we are here for you all throughout this insane conclusion to the college football season, whether it's breaking news, whether it's previews, picks, Cover 3 podcast, it's where it's at. If you are watching live, also please like the video. We appreciate it in advance. It helps us out, as we do have here at 12:03 a.m. Eastern time, a lot more to get to. So, 4th and goal from the 31-yard line. Who saw it coming? I love Nick Saban. He came out. Auburn didn't see it coming. That's for sure. Nick Saban, his comment to our own Jenny Dell after the game cracked me up. He said, been in some crazy games here. Normally doesn't go my way. I was thinking, as we were on the 10-year anniversary of the kick six, remember when he wanted that last second? Remember when Nick Saban argued for that last second on the clock so that they could kick it from, 74 yards, it seemed like? Nick Saban and Alabama got a break at Jordan-Hare Stadium. What is this world coming to?
We've come to a world where you could drop 8 and still just leave a guy by himself in the corner of an end zone on a 4th and goal somehow.
No, the key is if you double team all of the inside receivers, you leave the outside receiver one-on-one wide open in the corner.
That was there was a breakdown in communication on that play, and Alabama took advantage of it. That was just,
No, they really did. They just double teamed all the inside receivers.
Yes, I know.
Drop 8. Use 6 of them to occupy the middle of the field.
Well, it worked well, I guess, or it didn't. I don't know. That game was nuts. There was this, as I was watching it, and it was close the entire time, and Alabama was trailing for quite a bit of it. It's like, I never thought Alabama was going to lose until that snap went past Jalen Milroe there at the goal line. I was like, oh God, Alabama is going to lose this game. This is actually going to happen. And I had accepted. It's like, well, there goes that whole playoff discussion of Alabama or Tennessee. It's going to destroy the CFP take economy. And then Jalen just lofts the ball up on 4th down. It's caught for a touchdown. And I had the same reaction that the Auburn sideline did.
He went past the line of scrimmage. Do you know? Oh,
yes. Yeah, oh my God. I completely forgot about that part.
All right. So in extra time in Atlanta, a young, wily freshman by the name of Tua Tagovailoa ran 13 yards backwards and took a sack in overtime. Georgia fans in Atlanta going crazy. We just sacked them. They're not in field goal range. They're not going to be able to beat us. And then on 2nd and 26, Tua Tagovailoa found Devontae Smith in the corner of the end zone. After a similar boneheaded play as taking a sack to go out 13 yards backwards in overtime, Jalen Milroe goes across the line of scrimmage, throws a pass, illegal forward pass. He then totally redeems himself with a touchdown pass in the corner. Bama's going to win the title.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, their offense is fixed.
No. Listen, that was a vibes centric. That I've got no like information that says anything that Alabama has done in this game or to this point in the season that they're the number one team in the country. I mean, that was weird. It was wild how they won that game. Did not play well enough to win.
Auburn finished with what? Let's see, 93 yards passing
on 6 completions. Auburn completed 6 passes.
Yeah,
and it nearly won the game. And if not for a muffed punt, maybe it does. I mean, that's the thing. Auburn had 93 yards passing. It had 3 turnovers. It was outgained by 120 yards roughly, and Alabama still needed that play to win the game. Like, that's college football in a nutshell right there.
I don't know what you say about this. I mean, look,
Alabama Jesus.
Man, seriously, that is. I did like Saban's smile at the end. You know, it sort of with the vibe of just taking it all in. I actually agree with Tom there. Like when they messed up that snap, I was like, oh, they really might not win this,
right?
Because like that's a long way for Milroe to run the ball into the end zone. He's gonna have to throw it, and he did.
Maybe that was the plan. Maybe they got within like 10 yards, and they were like, "Oh wait, we can't call any of our plays. We need to lose 15 yards real quick."
If you had Auburn over 6.5 wins as your season win total, like these last 2 weeks have been.
Wait, didn't I?
I did too. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. No bueno. Man, look, Bama's a really good team. Do we think this is going to work next week?
No.
Right.
Okay.
Especially because Georgia was
welcome to the club.
Yeah.
What do you mean welcome to the club?
Welcome to the club. Come on.
I've been saying I did not think their offense was fixed for about a month. I was like, look, it was because LSU had all their guys out, and then they played a dead walking Kentucky team. Like, I don't think this offense is fixed. I am a little weirded out by how many rushing yards and how effective Auburn was able to run the football today, though. I mean, like that wasn't just a couple big runs. Auburn played keep away. They've done this twice now. Like Auburn kind of did this to Georgia. So I'm like, Auburn can't pass, and we're still letting Auburn run for damn near 300. Like, what are we doing? That's a credit to what Auburn's doing, obviously, but also it's a little skeptical eye here.
Yeah, I'll take that. All right, bud. Where are we at with the Noles?
Oh, well, win and cover. Just, look in the paper tomorrow, it just looks like a nice, hard-fought rivalry win, which it was. Man, that was not great early from Tate Rodemaker in the offense at all. FSU had negative yards, I believe, through the first 20 minutes of the ball game. And I was like, look, they're not turning it over. So as long as they don't do that, maybe if Florida can't pull away, they'll find some footing. I thought a couple really real key things. Number one, they really the defense stepped up pretty hard. Like that they Florida got the one insane roughing the passer, which kind of thought Norvell was going to swing at the guy, and it looks like Norvell actually calls he actually is waiting to run on the field to yell at him, and he does out past the hash marks. And then at the end of the game, you can tell he points at the ref and says something to him too as running off, and he ripped him as well in the press conference tonight. So like that was Florida's touchdown, right? Defense played really well. We talked on Big Game Breakdown about would Florida have left tackle Austin Barber, and if not, that meant they had to play Damian George at left tackle, and that was really a deciding factor in the ballgame because Jared Verse ate Damian George's lunch and dinner because it was a night game, I guess. They got it together enough. Early on, they were trying to run a bunch of like split zone, and that like Florida was eating it up, which I was kind of surprised because they had not played that very well. No. They went to some of the counter stuff. They went to some of their duo looks, and eventually Benson in the post game he talked about, hey, like Norvell and those guys had told him, hey, you have to be patient. There's gonna be a lot of 2-yard runs, and then you'll have the opportunity to break a couple explosives, and he did. And then you throw enough jump balls to Keon and Johnny, eventually you're going to get a couple. Like it was a pretty physical game. I there was a point there I was like, I don't know if they're going to win this because like they've got to get Tate settled down. They have to get the offense settled down around Tate Rodemaker, and they finally did. But it was a little nail biting for sure.
I think it was brilliant strategy on Mike Norvell's part in that he prepared for Florida State's Big Ten future by winning a Big West game today.
Dude, it was. So
because that's what that was. I was watching. I was like, I've seen Iowa and Nebraska play this game yesterday. I see Minnesota and Wisconsin do this all the time. That's exactly what this game is. 2 backup quarterbacks in late in the season. Nobody can move the damn ball. You're just waiting for somebody to screw up. And I think that's a huge win for Florida State. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but considering the situation and what is still on the line, like Chip, you and I, we were texting earlier, like it would have been so perfectly ACC for the week before the ACC championship game for both Louisville and Florida State to lose to their SEC rivals. Like what a great way to get hyped up for the biggest game of the year in the conference. But Florida State, after getting off to a slow start, kind of rallied, found its footing, and it's not completely understandable because you're playing in the swamp. It is not exactly the easiest place to play a football game. So you were shaky at first. You found your footing. You found out what was working for you, and you just kind of stuck to it, and you eventually wore down Florida's defense, which you're right, but I don't think I'd ever seen Florida get a stop on a split zone at any point this season until they were doing it tonight. So I was very surprised by that too. But like then you figured it like, okay, well, that's not working. We're going to try this. All right, now we can get the ball. We can, get Trey Benson going. He had the 3 touchdowns. It was a workman-like 95 yards from Trey. And just doing enough to get the win right now, which is really, if you're Florida State and you've lost your starting quarterback, that's what you have to do. It's not going to be pretty. You're going to have to play ugly. Like next week against Louisville, if you're going to win, it's not going to be a pretty win. But all that really matters at this point, if you're the Noles, is you win. Because if you win, you're going to the playoff. And then, yeah, it's going to be tough. But I don't know. You can't rule anything out. We've seen stupid stuff before.
Bud, you mentioned the post game. I have not gotten a chance to follow up on any of the post game comments. Any other takeaways from what Norvell said after the game?
Yeah, he just talked about like, hey, like we knew it wasn't going to be easy. It's hard to communicate down here. I don't think Florida State has had. Maybe they've had like 1 delay of game with the starters. They had like 4 delay game, which I'm not. Did you guys think the delay game on the punt was the correct call? The fake punt.
Oh, did they get it off in time? I couldn't tell.
I kind of thought they did, and I was like, oh man, that was really.
I heard the whistle before the snap. I know that, but I don't know if it was an early whistle or not.
It was probably the right call. But you could tell just operationally, especially with Tate in there. Like I think they had like 3 or 4 delay of games tonight with him in there. And it's a little bit different when you're trying to find stuff that you think you can call, for the backup in hostile environment. So, they chat's saying
it was close.
Probably depends on what team is in their logo.
I think so too. Yeah, the chat says kind of a split. No, like that is a good win for them. Like you get to go 12-0, right? Like that's pretty huge. You get to play Louisville next week, and we'll see what happens. I think what else is big for them. They were a 6.5 point favorite, right? against a better team than Auburn is. We think Florida's better than Auburn.
With Max Brown in there, I think it's close.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, with Mertz, they're definitely better than Auburn.
Mhm.
I would think. You saw Washington struggle at home as a 17-point favorite, right? Or 16 or whatever the game finished up as. So I think from that perspective, it's like, oh, other teams that are favored by more, it goes down to the gun. Like that, their performance certainly didn't help them. I think the performance of people against whom they'll be judged probably helps them a little bit.
Struggle bus Saturday.
Seriously, it was.
It was. Everybody at the top. Like, nobody lost. We didn't have any of the upsets, but there was no easy blowout win for anybody at the top of the polls. On the Florida side of things, and I tweeted this during the game, and this has been just endemic with them all year. That is a dumb team. That is a team that is addicted to doing stupid stuff week in and week out. I tweeted, I said, they're like the kid in elementary school who would eat anything for a quarter. And that's really what they do. And there were so many stupid, needless mistakes on their part in this game where they could have won this game had they just had some discipline and played smart. They're probably going bowling. I mean, sure, they're only 6-6, but at least they get to crow over destroying Florida State's playoff hopes. Instead, they're going home. So it's their own fault.
Can I rant just real quickly on quarterback sliding?
Well, before that, I just want to say, I believe that Marco Wilson, is that the one who threw the shoe?
That threw the shoe, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that Marco Wilson has become a spirit animal. I agree with your take. And I just think that everything that we have seen since Marco Wilson threw the shoe, it's just kind of echoes of Marco Wilson throwing the shoe.
I mean, yeah, like spitting, some of the just the silly late hitting, like blocking guys. It was. This is not a targeting rant. You guys know my opinion on targeting. I think targeting is kind of a made up concept, right? Yeah, like, and I get a lot of hate for this take. I get it, but like I do think targeting is made up just to protect the power brokers in the sport to try to say, like, hey, we're doing something about head injuries, right? Even if it's questionable as to how much it really helps. We have got to stop teaching these guys to slide when they're not clearly in like wide open space, because the flag is not going to save your brain, right? Yeah, you got a penalty and now you're in a wheelchair, right? Like on a critical third down, dive, get down, right? Don't slide, because you really can't, like, there's no force field around you when you slide. Like Rodemaker goes down. I thought it was kind of a late slide, honestly. Those guys are charging in. It's a critical 3rd and 14 in the ball game, and they smoke him. And like, okay, the targeting flag comes out. I get it. Like it's a targeting by the rule, and it's probably not that close compared to some of the ones we complain about. But still, like, that slide does not protect you from getting absolutely smoked. Like if you guys want to watch something, I watch a lot of American Conference ball. Hennigan for Memphis is how coaches should teach this. He does a great job of like seeing where the guy is, getting down, and does like a little like dive thing. I just think it's so much safer. And like he never takes the shots to the head. Like we've got to stop teaching these guys to slide. Like at least not unless you're, I don't know. Like we should make some kind of thing where like you cannot avail yourself of the protection of the late hit rule if you slide and anybody's within like 2 steps of you. If you're completely wide open, then fine.
It's weird. Here in this late hour, all of a sudden, buzz seems to say that Mark Stoops is not going to Texas A&M and staying at Kentucky.
Really?
Did Kentucky back it up? Or is there a head coach who maybe is available? You see this?
Wait a minute. Are you saying...
Do you think that Texas A&M was like, yeah, man, we're cool with Mark Stoops? Oh, Ohio State lost? Oh, what's that? Oh, Ohio State won't necessarily be in the Big Ten championship or the playoff.
What fan base did I compare Ohio State to a couple minutes ago? I'm just saying, Ryan, and this is all purely speculation on our part, but if this is actually going on, if you're leaving Ohio State because of undue pressure on you from the fan base, I don't know if Texas A&M is the place you're going to go find relief.
We'll see. Oh, buddy, we'll see. Coming up on the other side.
What if it's Dabo?
Could be. I mean, like all
Urban. What if it's
Dabo,
Belichick?
Ryan Day, Bill Belichick? Who
What
knows?
if it's Mark Stoops?
You cannot have Mark Stoops. You cannot have Mark Stoops as the leader. Have Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio say, I have it from a very good source, he's coming back, when he literally just talked to Mark Stoops on his radio show an hour ago.
I do want to give David Hale credit for this incredible stat. Florida in the fourth quarter, 50 penalty yards, 4 sacks allowed, 0 plays that gained positive yards. Holy cow.
Dumb team doing dumb stuff.
So Louisville lost to Kentucky. So what does that mean for Louisville? Where will the Cardinals land in the new top 25? Other shakeups and other top 25 reactions. Next.
You a lawman or an outlaw?
Bit of both, I reckon. Around these parts, we might be men. They're just killers.
You up for the task?
I wouldn't be sitting here in my Sunday best if I wasn't. I'm warning you, your wicked days are done.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. This is live. Billy Lucci also reporting here in this moment from Twitter. I can confirm Matt's breaking news, referencing Matt Jones' report from Billy, fully expecting Stoops to remain in Lexington.
Well, if that's coming from Matt and Billy, I think that's pretty solid. That is wow.
Listen, we are reacting in this moment. When we started this podcast about a little less than an hour ago, sure seemed like we were barreling towards Mark Stoops at Texas A&M, the fallout that would lead to good opportunities at Kentucky. We'll see. We'll maybe we will talk to you Sunday to discuss the Texas A&M job. Look,
Here we thought we might have tomorrow off.
Here we thought we were going to get it done tonight. All right, so looking at the projected AP top 25. So Georgia going to stay at 1, no question there. Michigan going to move up to number 2 after the win against Ohio State. Expecting Washington to move up into the number 3 spot. Florida State to move into the number 4 spot. And then Ohio State with its 1 loss, but that coming at Michigan to probably be the top one loss team in the rankings, probably at number 5. A little bit further down, a big drop expected for Louisville. I've got them from number 9 to number 13. It's their second loss of the season and their second loss to an unranked team. A little bit further down in the rankings, Kansas State. We didn't even talk about that Snow Bowl that they had right there in Bill Snyder Stadium. But Kansas State loses to Iowa State. I'm projecting them to fall out, opening the path for NC State, which was ranked in the CFP rankings, but not in the AP rankings. I think that they'll jump in. Other than that, it's mostly a lot of shuffling. Any top 25 movement that you're expecting or results you want to highlight here as we're projecting the new AP top 25 for the next 6.5 minutes or so?
Is it time we put Iowa in the top 10?
No.
Damn. All right. Well, I tried.
Can we move NC State over Tennessee?
Yeah,
Please.
I do. That's what I've got.
Like Tennessee needs to drop out. Come on.
Here's the thing. So
Quality win today.
These are your options. According to last week, looking at the voting points, Utah closer than expected win against Colorado that didn't have Shedeur Sanders. Nothing going to happen there, even though Utah also
4th string walk on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was going to say, even though they've got a JUCO quarterback. So yeah, you and I are on the same page there. Like the fact that they won is impressive given the context. AP voters, they're not going to know that context. NC State, I've got them moving in. UNLV fumbled the bag. All right. You just needed to beat San
They're
Jose
in the title
State.
game. That's all Tom cares about.
Is it computer rankings? They've gone beep, beep, boop, pop, and they've spit out what?
They haven't given it out yet. It's just UNLV is in both options.
Honestly, Colorado probably should have won this game if they had like an ounce of discipline. They had like 90 yards in personal fouls.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This one has not crossed my radar yet, so I haven't
did not
gotten
watch
hands on it.
this. Yeah.
I was interested in the under here, and I was like, Colorado, can you please stop committing personal fouls on defense that keep these Utah drives alive? Like, holy cow!
It's time for sicko mode. Let's go.
But listen, the card of games I cared about was like locked and loaded, and yes, like Utah, Colorado's on it, but man, I wasn't taking a priority spot. So good for you, as I've said here often.
Do you think there's a chance, like, because they were what, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 30. They were 31st technically in last week's AP poll, but they finished 24th in the college football rankings. Do you think there's a chance that because of that, Clemson sneaks in? Because we've seen this where teams that suddenly get to the back end of the CFP rankings, like you just mentioned with NC State, suddenly start showing up on AP ballots the very next week.
I just don't see. So James Madison won, Toledo won, Liberty won. Like all these teams with insane win totals didn't lose. So I'm just not sure that they're going to be falling out to open up the path. I do think.
Yeah, but G5 teams typically aren't sticky. Like,
I mean, dude, they
get thrown on there when like somebody's like, I don't know who else to put on here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you can get to 25 before you pick up Clemson.
I don't know.
All right. All right. I think we're getting Oregon probably stays at 6.
Yes.
Texas at 7. Alabama at 8.
Yes.
Some shuffling from there.
Wazzu moves to 9.
Yep.
I'm going to say Ole Miss jumps Penn State to 10.
Possible.
Mm-hmm.
How about 5 double-digit win seasons in the last 8 years for James Franklin?
Stinks.
All right. I mean, Penn State dominated a Michigan State team that is probably as good or better than that Mississippi State team.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss struggled with that team.
No, Egg Bowl doesn't count.
Egg Bowl doesn't count. But hey, are you just throwing the land grant trophy out? Come on, that is one of the most coveted trophies in sport, not just college football.
As a CBS employee, I'm a respecter of the land grant trophy. I love the land grant trophy and think it's awesome. It's also really big, which is great.
I think Ole Miss might jump Penn State for a few reasons. A lot of casual voters have probably only seen Penn State twice this year, and we both know how those games went for Penn State. B, Ole Miss was playing in a spotlight on Thursday night where it won its game, whereas Penn State was playing on Friday night at the same time as Oregon State, and it was a blowout. So I don't know how many people were really tuning into that. So all those factors plus like the SEC logo, I think could lead to Ole Miss jumping Penn State.
We'll see. What about Michigan had this tremendous win, packed with emotion, packed with value. Your strength of schedule is going to improve. Your resume is going to improve. I think that some first place votes will drift towards Michigan that weren't there, and it won't just be Ohio State's. I am projecting Georgia to still have a healthy advantage in terms of that 1-2 battle. What, if any, were the big takeaways from Georgia's win against Georgia Tech?
Georgia's getting ready for the SEC championship, Chip. That was my primary takeaway from that game. Just watching it, there was nothing interesting that they were doing. It was all like 3 base plays.
Same. Yeah. Same. I mean, I'm not putting Michigan over Georgia right now. Like I need to see more passing game out of Michigan, not to the tight ends, for me to believe they can actually beat Georgia. So I'm keeping Georgia.
All right. What about for Washington? Jumped ahead of Florida State last week. Washington 24-21. Bud, you mentioned, the comparison when we were discussing Florida State and Florida in the previous segment, but you tabbed the Cougars as a live dog, as a team that, you should keep your eye on. And it damn near happened.
Mm-hmm.
What's is it again just like the thumbs up? You survived, you win. It's like, do you apply the same Florida State grading scale to Washington, or was there something that happened here that's got your antenna tuned up?
No, I think you have to apply the same grading scale, right? But what I would say is, like, Washington has not looked good or right, I think is the proper term. In how many weeks? 5?
Well, one thing, so Dylan Johnson's foot isn't good. Like, Dylan Johnson's emergence in the run game has been really big to provide some balance there. And they were talking a lot about that. He still had a good game, but not always as spry between snaps. And I understand that pretty much everybody is at this time of year. You get a little knock and you're playing for a national championship contender. Guess what you're going to do? Play through it. You're going to figure out a way to get out there and try to give your best for the team. Looked like Johnson was doing it. Looked like Johnson was able to do it, but things were shaky for sure.
Is Penix okay? Like, I don't know, man. I'm just.
That was weird at the end of the game.
They threw the big hood on him and carried him off.
I mean, I understand the not wanting to watch the field goal thing, but it was I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out what was going on there. Just like, was he like the adrenaline having some sort of whatever on him, just emotionally or whatever? I don't know, but it was like, bro, you won. I mean, you should be happy. I know you had a couple close calls there that maybe you were just kind of like thinking about. You're like, oh God, I nearly lost us the game, but you won. You beat your rival. Go into the title game undefeated. Be happy.
Yeah. Leon in the Cover 3 tailgate says, does Penix have the flu? I thought they already had the flu.
How many times is this kid going to get the flu?
Don't you get 90 days of pretty solid immunity?
Maybe he has shot. If Penix has kids, I totally get him getting the flu multiple times.
I mean, he is like 33. He's probably got at least 2 of them.
Oklahoma State clinched a spot in the Big 12 title game, overcoming a 24-6 deficit at home against BYU, a BYU team that I thought had poured it all out, trying to knock off the Sooners in Provo last week, but still had a lot to say early in the game. Good on Oklahoma State for hanging in there, but it was a battle against the Cougars.
I don't appreciate it.
I need something from you. When you win a bet on Twitter for your Tom's Twitter tip of the day, what do you usually say?
There was never a doubt.
That's right. There was never a doubt.
Oh, because you guys have the Oak State.
Yes, Chip, I'm going to be. I'm going to be
do.
a hedging mofo this week. I got Oak State and UNLV playing in title games. I'm going to be those are going to be my 2 locks. It's going to be whoever UNLV is playing money line and the Texas money line. Those are my locks this week.
I also have Louisville 18 and 15. Ooh.
Let's go.
I mean, look, one team outgained its opponent by a ton today and won, despite some craziness, and that was Oak State. Another team outgained its opponent and lost, Louisville. Like, Oak State's not that bad of a team. We've seen 2 weeks in a row them fall behind, not panic. They stick to their game plan. They chip back. Now, look, you could tell me that BYU and Houston are not good teams, and that is concerning to me a little bit. A lot of it, actually, that they're falling behind in these games. But, like, you put up 500 yards, you scored a bunch of points, you had an easy schedule to get there, and you took care of it. And you beat Oklahoma, which was, like, the one real stumbling block we thought you might have. Like, congrats to Oak State. That's awesome.
What went wrong for Louisville?
Giving up that kick return. Kind of
-3 in turnovers and a kick return. Yeah. They only allowed like 200-something yards.
Right. Because I was going to say the scoreboard says that this Louisville defense that we had propped up all through the season was horrendous. That wasn't the way the game went at all. Like it was an offensive problem. I mean, they scored 31 points. I didn't think they were good enough offensively to be able to win this game.
I agree. Like they did not look great. You can't call this like a look ahead letdown type situation because it's, even if it is, like you can't excuse that. It's a rivalry game. You got to get up for it, right? Like there are going to be times where you have to get up for 3 games in a row, and this is one of them. So, but still, like it looked a little bit like their Pitt game, right? They moved the ball, they turned it over. The magnitude of the turnovers are freaking disastrous, and then they have a special teams error.
This goes to what I've been saying about Louisville all year, and it ticks fan bases off when you say it. But this is when I criticize Louisville and say I don't think it's a great team, it doesn't mean I think it's a bad team. It means that I think it's a team capable of losing these games. Like it lost the Pitt game, like it lost this game. It's a good team. It is not a perfect team. It has flaws. And if they run into a team that could expose those flaws, or they just have a couple plays that don't go their way, stuff like this is what happens. And that's kind of just it. They had a couple turnovers. They had 3 turnovers. They had the kick return. They just bad moments that ended up costing them in the end because, Kentucky had 289 yards of offense. Donovan Leary was 12 of 22 for 206 yards. Although he did throw for 3 touchdowns. Like, you just can't overcome those mistakes unless you're an elite team, and Louisville's not an elite team.
Yeah, the bet on Louisville was a good enough schedule is manageable, and they've cashed on that. They have taken advantage of a good schedule. They will have a chance to play for the ACC championship.
Yeah, no matter what happens next week, this was a very successful season for the Louisville Cardinals.
Yes.
And next year you play all the hard teams. So let's go.
A little different though, because you had Stanford, Cal, and SMU join the league. I think they actually got mixed up a little bit. Like it's not quite the death march we thought it would be.
Agree. Well, I don't know. Looking at
Cal, it was going to be.
Like, looking at Cal, just
beating up on UCLA right now.
Trying to add an emergency podcast to Sunday's.
Garber's got knocked out of the game on the first drive or second drive.
Yep.
Like hurt his shoulder pretty bad. It looked like that sucks for him.
All right.
20-7. They're toast. All right.
And which also means that my shot at going at 7-5 on win totals is now toast, as I had the Cal under. So if they get to 6 wins, that means it's a classic Chip 6-6, baby. We're just pushing it around.
Pushing the money around.
The money around. Tip the dealer. Man, it was a good season, y'all. See y'all next year. All right.
Same time next year.
Yeah, same time next year. Coming up on the other side, more of our takeaways from the weekend. And yes, like we need to unpack everything that's going on with the coaching carousel because in the moment, it's going nuts. More on all that and more next.
A Game of Honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. Saturday, December 9th on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, a thank you to everybody who hung out with us for Quinnen Williams. That was awesome.
Dude, Quinnen was great.
Yeah. I was very excited. Very excited. He showed up. He was excited. He had a lot of stories to tell. That's all you would ask for from those kinds of conversations, right? You know, he wanted to be there. And so if you haven't gotten a chance, check it out on our YouTube channel. Again, our discussion with Quinnen Williams in advance of the Iron Bowl. Obviously, Quinnen knows ball, but one of my favorite things about Quinnen being a ball knower was he watches enough that he says things like the right tackle. And he is correctly identifying that J.C. Latham is a future NFL draft pick. Like the right tackle, man. That guy's, really good. And I'm like, yes, you are correct, Quinnen Williams. J.C. Latham is an excellent, very talented tackle.
We need to figure out if Quinnen's wife, was Quinnen videoing his wife for that fourth down? Because he told us that she goes a little more nuts than he does, right? She's living and dying with every play. I'm curious.
And the 6-month-old daughter also.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. We're very appreciative of that, and be sure to keep it locked with the Cover 3 podcast for any other future similar pregame watch party type scenarios. Do you want to start with what we know, or is there anything else from the notebook? Where do y'all want to go? We've been at this for about an hour, and feels like a lot's happening.
America Championship settled. It looked like Preston Stone had a bad knee injury. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Also, I don't think it puts it in peril, but I will say the Zach Center injury could make next week a little more interesting than people might expect, because Michigan had already been kind of struggling at right tackle, and now they're going to have their backup right guard in there too. That could be something to keep an eye on next week as well as in the playoff.
Okay, I got into it with Iowa fans a little bit, and of course I did. But look, yes, I understand that Iowa has injuries this year. That is a fact. The players who got injured largely didn't matter for the most part, because the offense was hot garbage before they got hurt. And it's a little worse now, but it's not a whole lot worse. Congratulations on Iowa for winning the Big Ten West. David Braun is the coach of the year in the Big Ten.
Yes.
Not Kirk Ferentz. You can't create your own adversity. We can't be like Harbaugh is 6-0 or whatever he is this year because he created his own adversity. Like that. Braun is the guy who should get the award.
100%. He went 7.
Iowa fans do not think it's 100%.
No,
at
but
all.
Iowa fans are Iowa fans. They're going to be for their guy. It's all very emotional. I will say, speaking of Iowa, Kirk has never been a hard ass. He's softer than I think most people realize based on the way his teams play. He's been real emotional at the end of these games the last few weeks, guys. I don't know. I feel like he might not be the only Ferentz leaving down this year.
Whoa. Are you saying this is why Stoops is not taking A&M?
No. I think Stoops not taking oh man, let's go ahead. Let's dig in. All right. So I think Stoops not getting the A&M job is because it got floated, because we heard from the beginning of the day that there are not warring factions. We heard there are different factions, that the money they had to raise for the Jimbo payout means a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and that there are different sides to this, and always beware that it won't be a quote linear process. I believe either Pete or Bruce Feldman from The Athletic and Fox Sports, or Pete Thamel from ESPN, one of them in their pregame show report said it will not be a linear process. And so the Mark Stoops sure feels like Mark Stoops has supporters. He has people in the Texas A&M camp who believe he was the guy, and that, the way that Mark Stoops, even in his post-game press conference, tried to do the I'm not going to talk about that at this time. And he had a huge dance with his team in the locker room. Maybe in Mark Stoops' mind, he was gone. And it floats. And then somebody else who maybe was very invested in the process was like, Mark Stoops ain't good enough. And now we sit here, and it's only got to be better than Mark Stoops. If Texas A&M introduces a Jeremy Pruitt here, then it's going to go about as well as it did for Jeremy Pruitt.
Are you reporting Jeremy Pruitt to College Station?
No. I'm just remembering the last time that we had a revolt when the deal was almost done and everybody, So who would be the rock star hire for A&M at this point?
I don't know that there is a rock star hire for A&M. Like,
guys who are pretty confident have already said not into it. Norvell, Lanning, all the reports said that Lane was not an actual candidate, which I totally get from like a recruiting standpoint.
Elko told Duke he was good. I know it's not a rock star.
Do we think DeBoer wants Michigan if he's going to leave Washington? That's kind of my speculation. Right? Like there's a chance that Michigan opens.
If Michigan comes open,
obviously.
It's Jerome Moore's job, period.
That's sure?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah. It's literally like Urban was suspended. Ryan Day came in, and that offseason, Ryan Day was promoted. It's too beautiful the way that those two mirror each other.
Like is Elko a home run?
What? No. I was just I was thinking about, you said coaches who we know have like come out there and told their schools or the people at their schools that they're staying.
I would consider Elko a home run for the same reason I consider Mark Stoops a home run. Like, you have a coach that has proven they can win games at places that are very hard to win games. And now you'd be bringing them into a place where they'd have much more resources to actually help them make winning those games a little bit easier. And sure, the expectations rise, but I don't know. A&M, we've talked about this. If there is kind of like a Tennessee situation going on, or even like an Auburn situation where it's just warring factions among the boosters, there's a reason this program has never lived up to its expectations. And maybe we're about to see the latest example of that play out in public.
If A&M has that good of resources, then they should just go hire an adult, because like it seems like the way they present it is, turnkey, awesome. Like just getting anybody decent in there who won't screw it up. And look, they might be right. Okay. Like completely, like someone clearly had some serious problems, and so did Jimbo. And they both manifested themselves on the on-field, right? If you get a guy who's got his personal life in order and can be a competent manager of people and not alienate everybody in the building and do a decent job of hiring and not be a complete asshole who everybody hates working for, then maybe A&M really is that turnkey to where they can just go and win a bunch of ball games. And if so, I think Stoops would win there. I think Elko would probably do a good job. Like, there's a lot of guys, Jed Fish probably would. Like, there's a lot of guys who you could go hire. You don't need, like, I think Mark Stoops is a good recruiter, actually. I think they do a pretty good job. So
for Kentucky, yes.
The problem, but the problem is, and this is in the wake of listening to Quinnen Williams talk about his official visit to Alabama. When you walk in there and you see everybody whose like faces are on the wall in the facility, and you see everybody who's on the team there, and while Texas A&M has had talented players with high prospect ratings, their NFL stud star turnout is not exceptionally better than your upper middle class Power 5 program. They've got a Myles Garrett. They've got a Mike Evans. You know, they do have individuals, but it's not what you've got at Alabama, Georgia, Ohio. And look, I understand that Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State are the exception to all of these things in regards to what you produce at the next level. But Texas A&M, if it is going to strive for that kind of excellence on the field in college, you got to build to that, because right now it is more underperformance. The standard is the standard, and right now the standard at Texas A&M is falling short of your talent. So you need a coach to be able to flip that, which is why the sell of a coach like Mike Elko, or somebody that is more of a culture program builder type, would be. Tom, I agree with you. Like, I would say it's a home run. I would give it the Danny Cannell C+, but that's because I believe in Danny Cannell C+ as a fantastic rating system for all head coaching hires. Yeah, it's all amazing. C+. Fascinated to see how it works out. Next coach. But that's like Texas A&M. does not spit them out on the other side on the same clip that they have them coming in out of high school.
You know who was thrilled for a few hours and now is probably disappointed with all the Stoops stuff? Big Ten coaches outside of Michigan and Ohio State.
Because he goes into Ohio?
He has gone into Ohio since taking that Kentucky job and taken a lot of players that a lot of Big Ten programs have kind of relied on to win games over the years and have found it a lot more difficult to get those guys. And especially when you also combine it with Luke Fickell's time at Cincinnati. Like, Ohio became a lot more difficult to recruit for a lot of Big Ten schools with Mark Stoops. So when they heard he was going to College Station, I bet you a lot of them were like, oh, hell yeah, we're getting back in those doors. We're going to get some of those guys again. And now they're like, damn it. So
what about Dabo? Like, is this real, or do we think this is Dabo wants to feel appreciated and have Clemson fans be like, hey, we still do love you. You're right, Dabo. You do a great job type thing.
I've thought about this a lot. I think that Dabo is one of the few coaches who might be able to harness the power. Like, Clemson football is close to organized religion, you know? Mm-hmm. And Texas A&M football culture, sometimes people allege the cult part of that, of culture, right? Dabo is a culture guy. He is somebody who wants to come in. He wants to embrace, you know, what we are going to be, the kind of players we're going to get. Now, will he identify the same kind of players that fall in line with the kind of people that are cutting checks for the NIL war chest? We'll see. But, you know, if you can guide Clemson to the top of the mountain, maybe you can harness that same sort of passion and loyalty that Texas A&M has. Now, do I think it's real? I don't know. I truly do not. But as I've tried to game out the next step, I could see Texas A&M head coach Dabo Swinney. And that's as far as I've gone, is that I went from no way, absolutely not, no way, to I can see it.
Dave Doran.
No, Dave's.
If they don't want Stoops, they're not going to want Doran.
Yeah.
But again, I think that would be.
I was kidding. I was just trying to figure out a way to talk about NC State because they won 10 games, right?
Yeah.
No, they've won 9. They're 9-3.
9. Excuse me. All right.
The most anonymous 9-win team in the country. Thank you for hitting the season win total over, though. I appreciate that.
You need this season win total under. That's what you wanted.
No, I had the over on NC State.
Oh, but you also had the under on North Carolina.
Oh, and that hit.
Yeah.
Oh, we middled it today, boys. Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if y'all watched much of that game, but NC State walloped them. I'm not
surprised.
Just pulled their pants down, spanked them in front of the class like it was 1962.
I thought you were going somewhere else when you said pulled her past that. I was like, shoot, it's 1 a.m., but I don't. Are we doing
No.
Right.
I'm talking about that like
right.
embarrassing. Yeah, the embarrassing spanking from the teacher.
Did you guys have spanking in elementary school? Because we did.
No, not in elementary school.
CCD.
They'd have to call your
I got my
parents to
knuckles
paddle,
wrapped.
Okay.
No spanking.
Yeah. Yeah. No. That was just. They didn't. North Carolina didn't have it. They didn't show up today with what they needed to win, and it's a disappointing finish for the Tar Heels. You had NC State team heading into the game at 8-3. It was maybe a win and a half better than what the talent shows. You had a North Carolina team that was 8-3. That was maybe a win and a half worse than what the talent is. The team that has played better with less talent walloped them. Interesting weeks ahead for the Tar Heels football program.
You still don't think that's coming open, though, do you?
I'm not confident. because this is the nah, we don't need to do this right now. But I mean, Mac Brown, according to some, deserves to call this when he wants to call it, right? I mean, he has leveled up North Carolina football. Last 2 years under Larry Fedora, they win 5 games combined. He's leveled them up. He is also 72 years old. Got a lot of players that are going to be leaving from this team. You know, if you are, how about this? If you are North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham, are you enthused about bringing Mac back for 2024?
No.
Got a pretty good job if you wanted to take it to market.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Arkansas is not opening. Kentucky apparently is not opening. It's a better job than Mississippi State by a lot. It's a better job than Michigan State. It's a pretty damn good job, man.
Michigan State's been to a playoff and won the Big Ten recently. I'd say it's better.
I think Michigan. Yeah. I'm not.
And they'll pay you $95 million for having one good season. So I don't know if you get that.
Actually, you may not get it though.
Well, just use a private phone.
Don't use the. No, I don't want to. It's going to be a podcast that's downloaded a lot. I don't want to get too reckless. We'll save all her really good off-color jokes for July. So
we need a Michigan State thought here.
Yeah, I was going to say so Jonathan Smith is official. That's
great hire.
Yes.
Good God, yeah.
You have upgraded it, head coach. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Jonathan Smith is a good football coach who took an Oregon State program to heights it had not reached in decades. And you're putting him in a position, because that's the criticism of the Michigan State job is, oh my gosh, you're inferior to Michigan. Oh my gosh, you've got all these conference opponents that are going to be able to recruit. Interesting. Oregon State doesn't have to deal with Oregon or hasn't had to deal with USC or Washington.
Mm-hmm.
He is upgrading in the challenge, yes, but the role is something that he has already mastered.
Mm-hmm.
Great hire. No idea how it's going to go. C+.
Yeah, I that's exactly what it's the direction they should have gone. I think they got a very good coach, and I was worried that they were going to do the Mel Tucker thing again, where it's we need a great recruiter if we're going to compete with. It's well, no, you're never going to recruit with Ohio State and Michigan. You need a coach that knows how to put together a football program and then go out there and win games, and that's what they got because. Like you said, Oregon State has never been at the top of the Pac-12 recruiting rankings. They are never, the most talented team on the field, but they have been able to compete with the better teams in their conference. And that's what Michigan State needs to get back to doing. And they got a coach who I think gives them a very good shot of doing that again.
It looks like he's bringing a lot of his staff. Obviously, their ability to put together offensive lines is really impressive. I think is it Mahalsik? Mahalsik?
That's your boy.
The O-line coach? I know, but I love watching his O-lines. But Jim, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. It's
Jim,
crazy,
congratulations on moving back to a region of the country that will know how to pronounce your name because everybody has it.
Jim, you do a great job. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I do love watching your offensive lines play. That's a great hire. It really is.
Yeah.
You know who's really pissed about this hire? Everybody in the old Big Ten West. Nobody there is okay. No, they're all damn it. We wanted to pull that developmental kid out of Michigan that Michigan passed on.
And he's probably bringing Aiden Childs too.
Oh, that's going to be a big one.
Although I think Michigan State fans might be counting their chickens before they've hatched there, because I do think if I'm Aiden Childs, there will be a lot of interest in me if I enter the portal. So I shouldn't just go in with Michigan State in mind.
1,000,000%. also like $1 million.
Exactly. And I do think Michigan State would be the favorite because, like I was saying earlier, Michigan State's got money. So if they want to get him, and like I do think that they could pony up. It's just I think if I'm Aiden Childs, I'm playing it, but like I want to see who else is willing to pony up because I want to be in the best spot for me.
Is Syracuse going to get announced tomorrow or Monday?
Is it Mullen for real?
I don't know if it's for real, for real. It's been a busy day, a lot going on, but yeah, that I don't have another name.
Yeah, I've heard nothing solid, but enough people have kind of kicked that can around that I do wonder if maybe there might be something to it.
We'll see.
I would
Chad
be surprised.
Is just the guy from Holy Cross.
Yeah, Bob Chesney. We talked about him. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, if it's Chesney, I won't be surprised. If it's Mullen, I will be.
Yeah. What about
There's no
Jeff
way Rich Rod is in the running, right? No.
He could be. He's got Northeast kind of credentials from his time at West Virginia and in the Big East, so he's familiar with that territory. I mean, Rich Rod is the kind of guy I think that you would be looking for at Syracuse, a program guy.
What about Jeff Lebby? Is that going down? Mississippi State?
Honestly, of all the hires that have been reported where I thought there would be like a riot, I did not have money on it being Mark Stoops at Texas A&M. I thought it was going to be Lebby at Mississippi State.
We got Lane Kiffin.
From their fans or from like people who are not fans of Mississippi State?
Mississippi State fans, I don't think are. I mean, some are. You can never tell when it's social media because it's such a small window of who you're actually dealing with. But I've seen enough actual fans who are not exactly thrilled with the idea. Yes.
I don't think Mississippi State fans have come to grips with this yet. And for the audio listeners, it's you putting up your hand to vote yes for Missouri and to vote yes for A&M and to vote yes for Texas and for Oklahoma. And each time you vote yes, you're adding about a quarter loss to your schedule per team, right? Like your schedule is so much harder than it used to be, even though you're getting out of the West, because like you're not getting like a bad South Carolina as often, right? Like you're not getting that Vandy game as often now, even as you used to be able to get. So I think a lot of coaches turned this job down. I think Mississippi State wanted to get back to scoring points by any means necessary. I think Levy will score points there. Obviously, like we saw the kind of embarrassing situation where like you had Art Briles on the field. Oklahoma was pretty pissed about that. It seemed like Venables was too. Like how they're going to handle that in Starkville, I don't know. But C+, who knows?
No. So
it's an interesting hire. I have no idea if it'll work out.
My Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin went back because, of course, I mean, man played Thursday. He's been watching football all day. He hears the buzz. He's on the group chat with all the other coaches. He goes back through Jeff Lebby's Twitter profile and finds a picture that Jeff Lebby took of him in some Ole Miss socks and retweets it. So now we're going to get Jeff Lebby against Lane Kiffin in the Egg Bowl. Do you understand what a blessed existence that is for college football in 2024? What's better? I came out of the Egg Bowl being like tryptophan unders. From here on out, we're going Egg Bowl unders. But you give me Lane Kiffin and Jeff Lebby? There's no defense in that game.
My favorite thing about that, by the way, was when they were talking to Lane fully admitted, he's like, I'm much more comfortable coaching in a shootout. He's like, I don't care if my defense is giving up points. I'm much more comfortable. He's like, when the game is close and low scoring is when I'm not nearly as comfortable calling plays.
Stoops just tweeted this statement. I know there's been much speculation about me and my job situation in the last couple of days. It's true. I've contacted that potential opportunity. After celebrating a big win against our rivals with players I love like family, I knew in my heart I could never leave the University of Kentucky right now. I have a great job at a place I love, and I get to work with the best administration and greatest fan base in college football. right where I'm at. I'm excited to say I'm a Wildcat. All right.
So how many zeros were added?
Is he back to the old contract now?
I mean, well, he already had an absolutely incredible deal. Wonder if it got a little sweetener on it. Good for him either way. But,
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I will be honest.
Or maybe he heard like how insane the boosters are at A&M.
I mean, that's what I was about to say. Like, if you're Mark Stoops, quality of life, I think I'd rather be at that job than.
All right, listen.
Where would you rather live? Like there's no contest, Lexington.
Not even that aspect, but just like the pressure that is put on me for my job. You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, no, I would rather live in Lexington than College
I think you would rather live in Iowa City.
No, I mean, listen, I'm more than happy to stoke that rumor for fun. I have absolutely no.
Because that might be big. Lincoln Riley, I am not taking the LSU job. Energy. Remember? Lincoln Riley had us all like, okay, and then Lincoln's staying until he finally hit the back door. The thing is, out of respect to Kirk Ferentz, can't jump on that now. He's still got a Big Ten championship game. So tonight, he's happy to be a Wildcat.
Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, but he's always been happy to be a Hawkeye.
8 days from now, is Mark Stoops happy to be a Hawkeye? That's TBD. All right. Anything. I mean, upon further review, like everything's just going to be like a nonstop fire hose of reaction from here on out, basically until the national championship game. So we're going to try to keep up as much as possible. But anything else you want to get out here on Saturday night?
Basketball season.
Bud?
Well, the chat says my hair looks extra great tonight, so I appreciate that. Shout out to Liberty for their undefeated season, and they got a mariachi band in the locker room after beating UTEP at UTEP, which is
El Paso.
Cool, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It fits.
Shout out to South Florida, who was Alabama's toughest competition this year and is going bowling in Alex Galesh's first season.
Shout out to all of the teams that we talked about this morning, betting these like money line favorite parlays, taking care of business. It's been a good year for that. Every day.
Shout out to James Madison and Jacksonville State, who are both going bowling because enough 5-win teams lost today, including basketball season.
Did Wisconsin win?
Yes, they did. And, well, by the way, shout out to Wisconsin and Minnesota for just not scoring any points in the final 20 minutes of that game. So my under 42.5 hit. Thank you very much.
So
shout out to first quarter Stanford leading 13-7, being outscored 49 to 6 the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So JMU and Jacksonville State are in, even
no
with
matter what.
Cal, even with Cal beating UCLA.
Mm-hmm. They're in. They're going bowling. There won't be enough 6-6 teams.
Nice.
In fact, Minnesota at 5-7 might end up going bowling the way things are going right now.
But App State gets to play for the Sun Belt title.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Speaking of that UTEP game, shout out to UTEP for a ridiculous backdoor cover. 21-point fourth quarter from UTEP, which is like more than they've scored in several combinations of 3 games this year.
Mm.
Oh, we didn't talk Texas.
They won by 50. Arch Manning.
Yeah,
Arch
but like
Arch Manning.
That's what we wanted to see, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They dominated a team. Good.
Yeah.
Do that again next week.
They should, man. If they need to whomp them.
I mean, they can. They're that talented. Again, talent has never been my whatever with this team. It's just for whatever reason, they just go into neutral too much.
Do you think the committee will use the common opponent thing in considering Oregon against Texas if it comes down to it?
if it comes down to it, the non-conference win against Alabama is better than anything that Oregon has, and Oregon's strength of schedule in general is not as tough as Texas's.
They both played Texas Tech, and Texas crushed Texas Tech.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
agreeing with you, but I'm saying like Oregon doesn't win any of the other tiebreakers either. I know that Oregon's number 6 right now, and Texas is number 7 in the committee rankings. But if we're coming down to the very end, trying to decide that last spot, I don't know.
It's gonna be interesting. Yeah,
Could be really interesting. Whew. Hour and 35 minutes. We still got a Nissan ad to record. And you'll hear it in the first ad break.
I got
I wonder which one it'll be. Who knows?
And you can follow him on Twitter at BudElliott3. You can follow him at Tom Fernelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. We may be back on Sunday. If not, definitely back Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. All the latest on the coaching carousel. All the latest across college football. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.